ago. And of course Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, all over the world, there seems to be this Shia genocide happening right now. For their Bulandi, for the marhumin of yourself and for me, inshallah, Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا والشفيع ذنوبنا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين روحي وأرواحنا الفداء ولعن الله أعداءهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد فقد قال الله وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولقد خلقنا الإنسان في كبد. صلاة الله محمد وعلى. The potential and capacity of man has been our ongoing topic, and tonight is lecture number 4. The attempt from day number 1 has been to make us realize our own capacity, to make us understand at what lights Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us. He placed inside of us the ability to represent Him in this world. He allowed us to be that creation that could be the manifestations of His qualities. And at the same time, He allowed us the rights to be called His Khalifa on this earth. The problem lies, and we're trying to erase this problem now for 4 nights, is that sometimes we don't realize ourselves the amount of resolve and inner strength we have inside of us. That sometimes it takes a tragedy, a hardship, a calamity to befall upon us for us to realize just how strong we are. Be it as an individual, be it as families, or be it as an ummah. As I've said several places before, we the Shia ummah, we have no business surviving right now the way we are surviving. From day number 1 of Saqifa until now, there's been dhulm upon dhulm placed on us. Our books have been burned, our ulama have been killed, our countries invaded, our women disrespected, our youth wiped out, and yet we still stand here and we're stronger than ever. It goes to show you that when you are connected to the path of haqq, many can come and go, but you will remain on that path. And understanding this is understanding the concept of basirat, and that's what I want to speak about tonight, inshallah. What is basirat and how does it play in our discussion? Sallu ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. You see, there are 2 very distinct stories in history that we need to extract lessons from and to avoid, basically. Number 1, we'll look at the concept of Masdar al-Zarar in the Quran. And number 2, we'll look at the establishment of the Khawarij movement in history. How can we extract lessons from these 2 movements, and where can we go from there? All tied in within the topic of Basirat. To give you a little bit about the importance of Basirat from the Quranic approach, Surah Al-Araf, ayat number 179, talks about those qualities of the individuals that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used as a motivation to create the hellfire. The verse says what? وَلَقَدْ زَرَعْنَا لِجَهَنَّمَ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ. From the majority of the men and the jinn in the hellfire, they have 3 qualities. لَهُمْ قُلُوبًا لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا وَلَهُمْ أَعْيُنٌ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ بِهَا وَلَهُمْ أَذَانٌ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا أولئك كالأنعام بل هم أضل أولئك هم الغافلون. They are individuals who had hearts they never understood. They had eyes, they never saw anything. To look at something is one thing, to see something is another. They had ears, they never listened. Again, to hear one thing is one thing, to listen to something is another. The Quran then compares them to cattle, animals. أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ, they're like cattle. بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ, in fact, they're worse than cattle. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْغَافِلُونَ. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْغَافِلُونَ. They are the heedless individuals. From this verse, the second quality, the ones who have eyes but they don't see. The Mufassirin have said that this is a direct indication of the lack of basirat. For lack of a better translation in English, basirat is insight. We've been given two sets of eyes, the eyes of the body and the eyes of the soul. Eyes of the body is called eyesight, the eyes of the soul is called insight. Islam recognizes blindness to be that individual who's not an insightful individual. He could very much have working eyes on the outside, but if the eyes of his soul, what's called chishme basirat inside of him, is closed, not open, blind, Islam says this person is ama, he's blind. It does not resort to the idea that your physical eyes are working, because your physical eyes are very, very limited, but the eyes of the soul are not limited. In fact, to live in this world today, the ulama have said, your chishme basirat have to be open. If they're closed at this stage, then you'll be very confused. And sometimes our youth are very confused about right now what's happening in Syria, what's happening with the Iran deal, what's happening in Pakistan, what's our role, what should we do, who should we side with in Syria, for example. And because their basirat is not fully awakened yet, they're very much confused by the media here. If you don't have those insightful eyes inside of you, you'll be very much confused. Amir al-Mu'mineen says that there are three realities in this world: haqq, batil, and fitna. Haqq and batil are easy enough. Truth and falsehood. What fitna is, he says, is that it takes a little bit of haqq and a little bit of batil, combines it, and presents it to the masses. And that is known as fitna. And that's what this society right now we live in are masters at. Be it in the media world, be it in the entertainment world, be it whatever the case may be. They are masters at presenting the news. 10% might be correct, but the majority of it is to sway our opinions from left to right. And our youth are falling for that problem, because they're not able to understand what basirat is. Fitna is that description, that definition. You know, fitna in the Quran is one thing, fitna in the world of akhlaq is another thing. Fitna in the world of the Quran, it means test, imtihan. Yuftanun, you've heard that before. Fatana in Arabic means imtihan, asmayish, test. However, in the world of akhlaq, fitna is this disruption. My ulama had, my teacher had a very nice definition. He said fitna is that reality that enters the realm of haqq and does everything it can to destroy the haqq from within. That's fitna. To understand that fitna has entered the arena, then to extract that fitna from the circle of haqq, you need basirat. If you don't have basirat, the lack of basirat simply allows you to look at things that are on the appearance and the appearance alone. Look at the story of Karbala in front of us. Alaykum salam. Sallu ala Muhammad. We have individuals like Shimr bin Dhul-Jawshan. Shimr, as many of you know, was a man who fought in Siffin. He fought beside Ali against Muawiyah. 21 years later, he's fighting beside Yazid against Hussein. 21 years later. It's not a long time at all. Individuals who knew exactly who Imam Hussein was, because he would time and time again ask them, do you not know who I am? Do you not know I'm the son of Fatima? He would constantly introduce himself. And yet, they did what they did. It wasn't about bay'at. If a man denies or refuses to give bay'at to the Khalifa of the time, he doesn't get killed the way Imam Hussein got killed. He might be imprisoned, he might be hung. But the way that Imam Hussein and his ashab and awlad got treated, are they not individuals who realize the difference between what's on the outer and what's on the inner? Because in that same battle on the day of Ashura, you have individuals who very easily beheaded the grandson of the Holy Prophet. Then you have individuals in the camp of Imam Hussein who said, Ya Abu Abdullah, if they killed me, trampled my body, severed my body into 1,000 pieces, put that body back together, gave that body life, trampled that body, and did that 1,000 times, we'd stand beside you, Allah. But Imam Hussein is giving an opportunity now for them to leave the camp. Blows out the candle. You've all heard it 1,000 times. Not one person moved from where they were. It's not like there was umeed of them not losing their life. They're not. It's very apparent. 30,000 on one side, 72. They knew exactly what would happen. They knew their bodies would be trampled and mutilated and all this kind of stuff. But yet, the idea of leaving Hussein wasn't an option for them. Two very extreme groups on the day of Ashura. And if we can sum up the idea of one quality that this person had, that person didn't, it was basirat. It was insight. They were able to recognize that Imam Hussein at that moment embodied the idea of the ridayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On this side, they were simply able to see the Khalifa of their time might have promised him riches and gold and fame and maqam and money. Because you know, when Umar bin Sa'd shot that first arrow to the Khaymah, he turns to his friends in the army, I want you to bear witness to Yazid. I was the first one to strike that arrow against Hussein. Just in case there is some an'am or some reward that's being given, I want the biggest reward. And that's all they saw. They saw the apparent. They didn't see the hidden. And Imam Hussein's companions didn't see the apparent. They saw the hidden. And the crux of basira, to be an insightful individual, is to see the batin of everything, not the zahir of everything. If we get stuck in the zahir in this world, like I said, we'll be confused, our deen will become kharab, and we'll come off the path. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now, the story during the Prophet's time on Masjid al-Zarar is a very interesting one. As many of you know, when the migration happened from Mecca to Medina, there were the Muhajirin who, of course, came with the Holy Prophet. Then there were the Ansar who were there in Medina already, who welcomed the Holy Prophet. And together they established the Islamic government. Now, we do not say that every single individual of the Muhajirin and of the Ansar were muttaqi, pious individuals. No, there were also munafiqs within that group. And their nifaq used to come out when the Prophet used to leave for a war. When the Prophet announced that I'm going to Tabuk for the war, later on in his Risalat, a member of the Ansar approached the Holy Prophet and said, Ya Rasulullah, there's a couple of old individuals who are finding it difficult to go to Masjid al-Quba for their Salat. Is it possible to construct another masjid closer to their home where they're able to do ibadat and still have the convenience of close to their home? The Prophet didn't give an answer. So when I come back from the war of Tabuk, I'll tell you my answer. These individuals, later on, it came to reality that Abdul Amir al-Harib, a Christian scholar, who had nafra towards Rasulullah, didn't want to accept Islam, was able to penetrate inside the Ansar and create a fitna inside of them. And say, look, if you work with me, we can overtake Muhammad's government and we can benefit from the riches. What we'll do is we'll construct a masjid. On the outside it looks like a place of worship, but on the inside at night we'll ploy and plan to destroy the Islamic Empire. And with that they agreed, the Ansar did, and went to the Holy Prophet and asked for this masjid. The Prophet said, I'm not giving an answer right now. While the Prophet was gone, they constructed the masjid. On his return back, he saw the masjid. He reminded them that, look, I had told you to wait for me for a reply. They then had the audacity to ask the Holy Prophet to bless this masjid with 2 rakat salat. At that moment, the ayat came down from Surah Tawbah. Ayat number 107. الَّذِينَ اتَّخَذَ مَسْجِدَ الزِّرَارَ وَكُفْرًا وَتَفْرِيقًا بَيْنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. It's a very sensitive topic. And perhaps I have no right to discuss this. But I want you to very, very carefully listen to what I want to say. The ayat says that these are those individuals who constructed the Masjid of Zarar. Zarar in Urdu, Farsi, everything the exact same thing. It means harm, or to cause harm, or to create some sort of delusion or destruction. The Quran is giving this masjid the name of Zarar. The purpose was what? Kufr and tafriq. Disbelief and disunity amongst who? Bayn al-mu'mineen. What was this? On the outside it was a masjid. When this wahi came down to the Holy Prophet, his hukum was to destroy this masjid, to burn it on fire. Now, if you and I were there, it's a serious question. If you and I were there, beside the Holy Prophet, in front of you is a mosque and a masjid built by the hands of the Muslimin, and the Prophet says to burn down this masjid, a lot of us might sit there and say, Ya Rasulullah, is it necessary to burn down the entire masjid? Dhikr of Allah still happens here, salat still happens here. Perhaps we can, change the management, have a general body meeting, remove those who are causing fitna, inject those who are actually the mu'mineen. The Prophet says no. Burn it down to a crisp. Meaning if a place on the outside looks like a place of worship, but on the outside is causing kufr and tafriq, the hukum for the Holy Prophet is to destroy such a place. It's a lesson today for you and I. A lot of our places all over North America, on the outside they look like, Husayniyas and masjids and mosques. I'm sorry, on the inside, what's happening, what's being said, what's being devised up, what's happening, all these things have to be taken into account. It's not that simple. Let's not be so naive to simply say, at least Baab is dhikr Hussain ho raha hai. No, it's not that simple. I'm sorry. The Prophet of Allah said to burn down this masjid. Inside people were praying it. Inside people were reading du'as. The Prophet says, no, the bunyad of this place is a problem of kufr and tafriq. Where that bunyad is there, the Prophet says remove from society. So at that moment, individuals beside him didn't have the basira to understand that this could be the cause of an immense fitna within the Muslim world. Okay, point number one. Point number two is the Khawarij movement. Who were they? The Khawarij movement were individuals who were there in Ghadir, gave bay'at to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Ibn Mujim, who's the qatil of Amir al-Mu'mineen, placed his hand on Amir al-Mu'mineen's hand on Ghadir. Said, Labbaik ya Ali. Said, Bakhin, and everybody else did. Gave bay'at, understood Mawla to be his, up until when? Siffin happened. When the arbitration happened between Mawla Ali and Muawiyah, it's at that moment that these individuals couldn't understand between haqq and batil, and they said, Ali, you have no right to place your khilafat up for arbitration. If it's from Allah, there's no negotiation. If it's not from Allah, you weren't Mawla to begin with. So they broke off from both of them. They called Muawiyah kafir, they called Na'udullah Ali kafir as well. And this system of takfir, which we have today all over Pakistan and Saudi, of labeling Shia as kafir, labeling this person kafir, started this bunyad is from the Khawarij movement of Siffin. They very easily said that those who don't follow our path are kafirs. They weren't able to recognize who belonged to the side of haqq and who belonged to the side of batil. When Muawiyah put the Quran on spears, people stopped. Said, Ali, are we fighting you? Or are we fighting the Qurans? He said, those things on spears are pieces of paper. Ana Quran al-Natiq. I'm the actual Quran. If you understand me, you'll know that that's falsehood. Because you weren't able to understand me first, you're very misguided by those pieces of paper. When he tells Malik Ashtar to come back, Malik says, Malik, give me 5 minutes and this war is over. He says, Malik, in 5 minutes, your Mullah won't be here. come back. They surrounded Ali. So how can we fight the Quran? We're going to fight you right now. They weren't able to, at that moment, after all those years, decipher between truth and falsehood, because Muawiyah was the master of fitna. And the Muawiyah movement today is also the master of fitna. And God forbid we be those individuals where haqq is staring us in the face and we're not able to recognize it. These two groups exist today as well. There are people out there who establish masajid, to create fitna amongst our communities. There are people out there who right now who are labeling Shias as kafirs, and that is all from the Khawarij movement. That's why in Nahj al-Balagha, when someone approaches Amir al-Mu'mineen and says, congratulations Ali, the Khawarij movement is dead. He says, no, it's not. The Khawarij movement exists within the stomach and the womb of the mothers. They're very much alive today. And they're alive today as well. What's happening in Pakistan, they look at your passport. If you're Shia, they kill you. If you have bruises on your chest, they kill you. The only crime they commit is they have love of Ali in their hearts. In this day and age, this taraqi and insan has gone forward and pishraf and all this, for that to happen is mind-blowing. That's why sometimes, I've had several debates with our youth, in the US especially. They actually have the gall sometimes to challenge us to say that Islamic Sharia is outdated. Hijab and khums and barajiyat and all these things are good for the Prophet's time. We're in a new era here, 21st century. Man has progressed. And what they don't understand is Islam doesn't measure the progression of man based on those things that exist outside of man, but rather those things that exist inside of man. Yes, our phones are smarter, mashallah. Our cars are nicer. Our homes, our appliances, all those have, mashallah, gone through immense taraqi. Insan is exactly where he is, if not a few steps back. Let me tell you a small story. A person I knew, they were expecting their first child. They went to go get their ultrasound done. True story. Where? In Markham. When she enters the lab room, there's a big sign that says the technician is not allowed to tell you the gender of the baby. That's a new sign for me. I don't know about all of you, but when I had my daughter, I was very easily able to tell the gender of it. After the ultrasound, when she asked the technician, why is it the case you're not allowed? She said that there are individuals, when they find out they're having daughters, they abort the child. And this is more apparent in the South Asian communities, she said. So to save that child, we don't tell them the gender of the child. Where is this happening? Not some Gaon, Pakistan, India. Markham, 2013, a mere months before Muharram started. If we look at the era of Jahiliyyah, there are three main khususiyat of those who are Jahil. One was they worshipped idols. Two was that they disrespected women. Their daughters alive, it's very mashhur. Number three, they would easily shed each other's blood. You're telling me those three don't exist today? Your idol worshipping doesn't exist today? Yes, your idols have changed, so worshipping still exists. The ease by which we shed each other's blood has become very easy today. In broad daylight, someone like Professor Asad Jafri, 5 bullets in his head, in broad daylight, and not one person is there to say anything. And the women, the story I told you just now. So save me the whole speech about insan has done taraqi and pishraf and all that. He hasn't. We are exactly where we were. That's why history has a problem of repeating itself sometimes. That's why I mentioned last night, the mission of Imam al-Zamana will be exactly the same as the mission of Rasulullah. To the point where insan will again completely drown himself into dhilalul mubin, utter darkness, and then the nur of Muhammad will come again. So let's be careful about this idea of we believing Islam is outdated because man has moved on from the Sharia. It's not. These are things to create fitna inside of us. If we're not the Ahl al-Basir, we'll be very, very confused. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Understanding this idea of having basirat, to look at things for what its appearance is not what we want today. To understanding there's a hidden message behind it. The example I'll give you is very simple. Social media nowadays, and I'm not an enemy of social media. I believe it's a tool we can use to benefit Islam. I do believe it's ruining our youth, but that's my own opinion. I'm not an enemy of Facebook or Twitter. In fact, I myself am on Twitter. However, I don't like the discussion when our youth come to tell us that it's a tool. And how you use that tool is up to you. Don't blame the tool, blame the person using that tool. Fair enough? For example, this glass here. This glass is a tool. If I empty this water out and put sharab or alcohol in it, that's me doing that. Don't blame the glass, blame me for doing that. Social media is no different. Social media is a tool. How you use it is up to you. Don't blame social media, blame the person that is using social media. That's a very naive way of looking at things. A very simplistic way of looking at things. A very easy way to justify what you do on social media is to use it like this. No doubt, social media is a tool. But certain tools are used for certain things. The example I'll give you is this. The month of Ramadan comes about, it's time for iftar. There's a bowl of soup or bowl of halim, let's say, in front of you. And someone gives you a screwdriver to eat that halim with. Takes your spoon away. As I say it, use a screwdriver, it's better. And you look at the screwdriver and say, look, it's been 16 hours, I'm very hungry. Give me my spoon back, please. No, the spoon's a tool, the screwdriver's a tool as well. Use it to drink your halim. The response I'll say is, you're right, they're both tools, but the screwdriver isn't meant for me to eat halim with. The screwdriver has a khas maqsad behind it. It's used to, let's say, tighten screws in the wall. A spoon is used not to tighten screws in the wall, but to eat halim with. They're both tools, but they both have very special purposes behind them. Social media is a tool, no doubt. But social media has a specific purpose behind it. And if you allow yourself to fall into a trap of things like narcissism, I've spoken about that in Muslim Center many, many times, or other defects, then you've allowed that tool to use against you what it's meant to be used for. We live in a world where we are completely engulfed with ourselves and have no care about what's happening around us. And social media is adding to that. A lot of your children are on Facebook, and they're on Twitter, and this glamorization of sin that's happening in today's day and age is incredible. A lot of my youth ask us, what's the most effective sign of the ghaybat of the imam? And while there are many, what the ulama say is that munkar will become ma'ruf, and ma'ruf will become munkar. What was considered to be virtuous at one moment has become vicious today, and what's considered to be vicious today has become virtuous today as well. And that's exactly where we are right now. The glamorization of sin. We put our sin out there on Facebook and we wait for an applause, a like or dislike, a comment, people following us, commenting on our picture, pictures of places we shouldn't be at. The youth today have the himmah to take those pictures and then post them on Facebook and say, look where I was Friday night. Well, a lot of their statuses are songs that they like. Have you checked out the latest song from this artist? As their status. And now what's happening is that not only are you confessing that you listen to that music which is haram, you're promoting this idea as well. So now in all of this, when you're engulfed in this society so much so, it's making you become a narcissistic individual. Where have you had time for any sort of basira or basira? Nothing. You're not insightful at all. You're a person who is completely engulfed with yourself. What's happening in Syria, Pakistan, how it's happening, the Iran nuclear deal, etc. Who cares? I just want to see how many likes I have on my Facebook page, how many followers I have on my Twitter page. And these are things that this tool is meant to be used for, to draw us away from the reality. Many times we have individuals. I don't want to go down the social media route. I told myself I wouldn't. It's not that time, so you guys understand what's happening out there. But the idea here is that we need to be insightful individuals. How do we do that? There are several ways. Number one, the Quran talks about the idea that those who have taqwa, يَجْعَلْ لَكُمْ فُرْقَانًا. Allah will place or inject inside of him a furqan, a criteria between haqq and batil. But the criteria, the condition is taqwa alone. That's one. Now the effects of taqwa is what? Many times we believe we hear about taqwa, we hear about piety every Friday salat, etc., etc. We wonder, what is taqwa? How can I be a pious individual? Again, let's come to the Quran. The effects of taqwa is what? Surah Baqarah says what? Kam min fi'atin kathiratan ghalabat fi'atan qalilatan bi'idhnillah. I have it swapped. Have you ever seen the individuals of a small group defeat individuals of a large group? Bi-idhnillah, with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have individuals, for example, in Surah Badr, the Jang of Badr. 313 on one side of the Holy Prophet, 900, some say 1,000 on the side of Abu Sufyan. The Muslims were victorious. Ali had 40,000 in Siffin, and Muawiyah had 100,000 in Siffin. Again, had it not been for that desperate tactic by Muawiyah to put Quran on spears, Ali would have won that war. 72 on one side, 30,000 on another. And yes, while we know that Imam Hussein's head was severed, and perhaps on paper he lost the war, we understand today that he was very much victorious. As Ayatollah Bahjat has said very famously, rahmatullah alayh, Karbala was that war where the blood defeated the sword. And today, right now, we're seeing that the blood of the Shuhada across the world is defeating these governments out there that are looking to wipe us off the map. It's the blood of these shaheeds right now that are causing that awakening, that's causing this movement across the Muslim world, that is making the face of dhulm apparent in front of all of us. But that is the Husseini revolution. Khair. So when you have this concept of taqwa, which of course will give you the idea of basira, one of them is that it gives you himmat against your enemies. The story of the Jang of Badr is a very interesting one, to my youth especially. Read up on these wars, guys. It's online, it's in English, it's well translated. 3 times the size of the army the Muslims were facing, and yet they were victorious. Allama Tabarisi says in his tafsir, when the war started, the enemies of Islam had this immense overconfidence. They saw 313 individuals, they knew that there were 1,000 people. The Muslims had a hint of hopelessness, but they had taqwa and piety towards Holy Prophet's mission. As the war went on, the 2 scripts flipped. The enemies of Islam began to become hopeless. Now, what was once 313 began to become triple the amount. Wherever they looked, they saw individuals. The Muslims became more hopeful. What was once 1,000 now is down to 100 some odd. Why? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala injected that basira inside of their eyes to be able to see the enemy is conquerable. Don't worry about numbers. We Shias don't worry about numbers, right? We're not worried about majority. When the Quran says, وَكَانَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ أُمَّةً, Ibrahim is an ummah, a nation. Ibrahim is one individual. But because he is on the path of haqq, he's an ummah alone. Same idea here. When you have this idea of having taqwa within the Prophet's mission, Allah will instill inside of you this chishme basirat, to be able to conquer the enemy. And that's what happened. In Badr they were victorious. That same basira in Uhud didn't happen. In Uhud, they were able to follow their nafs, go after Bayt-ul-Qaim. They went around the mountain and they were conquered, the Muslims. We literally see in front of our eyes in history where those individuals who were the Ahl al-Taqwa were victorious and where they were not victorious. And the result of that was they were able to see, look, even though there's 1,000 people facing me right now, I believe in my Holy Prophet's mission. I believe this to be the Batini mission, that to be the apparent. And that's where you and I have to be in today's day and age. A lot of confusion. The media will present to you news items where they have a hidden agenda. Understand that. I'm not about conspiracy theories. But I am about this idea that certain things are haqiqats right now. CNN has a certain mission. BBC has a certain mission. Even Press TV sometimes has a certain mission. We have to be able to balance out our thinking, understand what the reality is, understand that living in this world, there's a lot of fitna happening. Remove the haqq from there and follow that haqq alone. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala. Because this deen of ours has been, like I said yesterday, survived on the back and sacrifice of our youth. You know, the fitrat of the mother is such that she will place herself in harm's way to ensure that the child does not get harmed. As Imam Sajjad said in his Risat al-Huquq, he says that the right of your mother is such that you should understand that she went hungry so you could eat. She went thirsty so you could drink. She went sleepless so you could sleep. And then he says that she stood in the burning sun so you could lay in the cooling shade. That's the fitrat of the mother. She'll take on all of the bala and all of the problems so you are problem free. But the mothers of Karbala went against that fitrat for Hussein. I don't know how many mothers you know who would prepare their kids at the age of 10 and 11 to go give their life. When Owner Muhammad approaches Imam Hussein and says, Mama, we want permission to go and give our life. Imam Hussein says that I cannot give you that permission until your mother does. And then they say that it is our mother who sent us here to get the permission. When Janab Qasim is approaching Imam Hussein al-Shabi Ashur and saying, Chacha, is my name on the Fahris of Shuhada? And Imam Hussein doesn't answer. Because Chacha, is my name on that Fahris, is my name on that list of Shuhada or not? He looks at Janab Qasim with tears in his eyes. He says, Qasim, you ask about yourself. My 6-month-old Ali Askar's name is on this list of Shuhada. But he didn't give ijazat to Qasim right away. When Farwa found out that Qasim wasn't going to go and give his life or wasn't given permission, she began to cry. How could it be that the Nishani of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba wasn't able to give his life for Imam Hussein? She begged Maulana Hussein to allow my Qasim to go in the maqtal and give his life. To the point where, like I said, Qasim's armor was too heavy for him. Qasim's shoes were too big for him. They had to tie his shoes to his feet. He couldn't lift the sword with one hand. But the idea of not giving his life towards Imam Hussein's mission wasn't an option. And the mothers of these shuhada were the mothers who would encourage them to go and sacrifice your life. There was that fateful moment I want to speak a little bit about tonight, Masai, where Janabi Ali Akbar comes to Imam Hussein. After the Ansar have given their life one by one, he says, Baba, give me permission now to go and live my life. This was the most beloved son Imam Hussein had. He said, I will not give you permission until Zainab gives you permission. The books tell us that when he went inside the tent to get permission, the tent opened and closed at least 12 times. That every single time Ali Akbar went to leave the tent, another khatum will come and grab him inside. One would grab his arm, one would kiss his forehead, one would grab his abba, one would say, who are you leaving? You are the resemblance of our grandfather, our holy prophet. When finally he was able to get out of the khema, he goes and Imam Hussein mounts him to the horse. Ali Akbar begins to go inside the Maidan of Karbala, and he hears footsteps behind him. The faster the horse goes, the faster the person following him goes. Until he stops the horse, looks behind him and sees what? His father is following him. He comes down off the horse. He says, Baba, you gave me ijazat. Why do you follow me like this? He goes, Ali Akbar, gosh, if you were only sahib olad. If only you had an olad like I have in you. I've let you go. But it's very hard for someone like me to let someone like you go. You are the resemblance of my grandfather. Every time I missed Rasulullah, I look to you. And then he would say, Ya Allah, bear witness, I'm sending that Ali Akbar who khulqan and khalqan reminded me of my grandfather. Go Ali Akbar, go. But every so often, if you can, turn your face towards me so I can see you as you go towards the Maidan of Karbala. When Ali Akbar falls from the horse and Imam Hussein runs towards Ali Akbar, he holds Ali Akbar. For every single shaheed, he places the head of the shaheed on his lap. But with Ali Akbar, he grabbed the cheek of Ali Akbar and put it on his own cheek. He says, Baba, Baba, there's pain in my chest, Baba. There's pain in my chest. He lies down Ali Akbar. He sees a spear lodged in the chest of Ali Akbar. He grabs the spear, begins to pull out the spear one by one. The body of Ali Akbar goes up and down on the plains of Karbala. It's at that fateful moment he turned towards Najaf and says, Baba, you were that Mawla who ripped the door of Khaybar. That door that took 40 men to open and close. But have you ever ripped the barchi out of a young Javan's chest? Come to Karbala, see your Hussein, see my Ali Akbar. He places one knee on the chest of Ali Akbar, one foot on the plains of Karbala, grabs the barchi, says, Ya Ali, and pulls the barchi. سيعلم الذين ظلموا ما ينقلب Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to accept this qaleel ibadat, inshallah. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to give us a tawfiq to understand what true haqq is in this part of the world, inshallah. Give us and open for us that chishma basirat. Allow us to be insightful individuals. I ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to forgive the sins of our marhumeen, inshallah. Within the hearts of our youth, convert the pleasure of sin to the pleasure of worship. There's so much injustice in the world, Allah, in Pakistan, in Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, in Malaysia, in Bahrain, all over the world. We ask you, Allah, to hasten the reappearance of your wali and allow us to be beside him during his mission. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.